here's what's coming up on The World Today. The Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, dies at the age of 99. Described as a man of duty, world leaders pay tribute to the late prince. Plus, it will take months to repair the damage. Residents of Belfast reflect on the recent unrest in Northern Ireland. A warm welcome to the program to our viewers in Nigeria and around the world. You're watching The World Today on Channels Television. I'm Akaite Afia. The most famous family on earth is mourning the loss of its patriarch. Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth II's husband, has died at the age of 99. A statement issued by the palace just after midday spoke of the Queen's deep sorrow following his death at Windsor Castle on Friday morning. The Duke of Edinburgh, who was the longest-serving consort in British history, had returned to Windsor on the 16th of March after a month in the hospital. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he inspired the lives of countless young people.
We remember the Duke for all of this, and above all, for his steadfast support for Her Majesty the Queen. Not just as her consort, by her side every day of her reign, but as her husband, her strength and stay of more than 70 years. It is to Her Majesty and her family that our nation's thoughts must turn today, because they have lost not just a much-loved and highly respected public figure, but a devoted husband and a proud and loving father, grandfather, and in recent years, great-grandfather. So we mourn today with Her Majesty the Queen. We offer our condolences to her and to all her family. And we give thanks as a nation and a kingdom for the extraordinary life and work of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh.
And on the streets of London, residents have been reacting to the news.
The funeral, if it will take place in a week or 10 days' time, so that's a really interesting question. Will that be countenanced, that degree of mixing? That's a really interesting question. It's hard to imagine that one could have a state funeral, if there will be a state funeral, which I imagine there will be, at which people are told you're not allowed to line the streets, or if you are, you've got to stay 2 meters apart. I can't really see that happening. In fact, just over at the gates of Buckingham Palace now, people have started laying flowers, of course, as is a tradition, a very nice tradition, and I think increasingly forlornly the mounted police are attempting to persuade them to keep 2 meters apart and put their masks on. But I think, as you probably know, at this stage of towards the end of lockdown, it's increasingly hard to persuade people to do that. So I don't think many people are obeying, to be honest. Well, she's an extraordinarily strong woman, isn't she? But I guess we should be worried to the extent that I remember when the Queen Mother died, the so-called, in the annus horribilis, that took its real toll on her, as did the death of her sister, Princess Margaret. So one can only imagine, what toll this will take. But of course, she has her extended family around her, and she has, the thing that makes her, arguably the most famous woman in the world, this incredible commitment to the country and to the Commonwealth. And so I imagine that somehow she will screw her courage together and will continue, because she'll see that that's the best way that she can honour her husband and the duty, the years of duty and commitment that he gave to the country.
I can't imagine how she will be feeling, because he is her friend, companion, and I can't imagine, because when my husband passed on 12 years ago, I know the feeling. I can't really explain it, because if you are close to someone who is dear to you and you do everything together and suddenly it's no more, the feeling, I don't think we can explain it. When I was younger, in primary school, the first time the Queen visited Nigeria, I was in primary school. We line up the streets with our Nigeria flag. We are shaking our flags and happy. And then when we are saying we would like to be like the Queen when we grew up, little did I know that I will be in the Queen's land. And here am I today. I think the whole world loves the Queen, especially.
Well, I mean, it was a bit of a shock over in East London, so just thought I'd come over, pay my respects, sort of lay some flowers, take a minute, just take it in. It's a big event, big part of the country, so... Well, I mean, I think it's a big thing at the moment, obviously, between the royals and whether they are relevant, and in my opinion, yeah, they're a big part of the country. Not necessarily in the same way as they were once before, but they do a lot for the country that isn't seen, that's behind the scenes. So, and growing up with a sort of military family, thought it's a big thing, so come and pay my respects. Well, I think she'll be devastated, and obviously my heart goes out to her. It's been with her for as long as I've been alive, as long as my grandparents can remember as well. So it's obviously a big thing. She's going to be getting used to it, but hopefully she'll be okay.
Our London correspondent, Juliana Olayinka, has been monitoring happenings near Buckingham Palace, from where she joins us now. Juliana, thanks for joining us on the program. Talk to us about the goings-ons near the palace since the announcement of the prince's passing.
Good afternoon. Well, it goes without saying that not only are the royal family, but the entire population of Britain are in mourning today. They've been plunged into mourning. We are outside Buckingham Palace. As soon as we heard the news a couple of hours ago, we rushed down here, and within, I would say, probably 50 minutes of Buckingham Palace releasing the statement, this area where I am in the centre of London is absolutely ram-packed jam, full of national media, international media. Dozens of tourists have been flocking out to pay their respects. And I think if anybody had underestimated the power of the royal family, they would have to change their minds, because this does feel like a monumental moment in history. I'll be echoing the sentiment of much of what you've already said and what we've heard from the viewers that we spoke to earlier today. The Queen is a beloved member of the entire world. The Duke was married to her for 73 years. He's the longest serving consort in history. Not only was he a great-grandfather and a grandfather, he was a father, and he was certainly the pillar of the royal family, somebody who the Queen described herself as her mainstay, and somebody who was right by her side through what has been a pretty turbulent few years. Forgetting what's been happening with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, there was also the scandal with Prince Andrew. Lots of questions being asked about whether or not there is relevance of the royal family, and pretty much looking at the scenes that we're seeing here today, they certainly are. And we are outside Buckingham Palace. We do know that the Duke did die in Windsor Castle, which is just a few miles outside of London. I believe Buckingham Palace have actually released a statement through the media asking people not to lay flowers. Just behind me, people have been.
Juliana, just to butt in there, I know the Queen has been guarded about her emotions so well over the years, and we did see that when she lost her mother, the Queen Mother, in 2002, and also her sister, Princess Margaret, in the same year, which did hit her hard. And these are people who were especially close to her. So what are you hearing as regards to how she's feeling at the moment, and what her thoughts on the royal family is about what happened?
Well, we're not really hearing anything at the moment. We've had that official statement that was released through Twitter, and it was also traditionally placed at the gate just behind me here. And then, of course, we did get that statement asking people to observe social distancing measures. But, of course, the Queen is going to be absolutely devastated. Again, you know, this was her rock. This was somebody she was married to for 73 years. A lot of people who get close to Her Majesty do say she is quite a shy and reserved lady. And, you know, if you listen to a lot of the royal historians who have been speaking back to back on British media, Prince Philip, you know, was the light and soul of the family. He was somebody who made some controversial gaffes, but certainly lightened up the room, and he was pretty much a solid, strong figure. So, of course, she will be completely sad. We know that she goes officially into 8 days of mourning. I know that you played that soundbite there from Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister. Politically, all campaigning will stop in the UK. Parliament is still on Easter recess. I believe they will be called back on Monday to pay their tribute. There is political cabinet meetings ongoing today about what exactly will happen, because, of course, if a senior member of the royal family dies, it is a huge issue. We would expect a full-blown state funeral. We won't expect that now, but then, of course, so many people want to pay their respects.
Of course, and for the rest of the nation, there have been tributes pouring in from around the world extolling Prince Philip's life of service. And I'm sure much of that, even much more, is being mirrored back in London.
It is being mirrored back in London. Prince Philip was the Duke of Edinburgh, so there are no surprises that Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, has been paying her tributes. We've also been seeing that from the other ministers for the four nations, Montfort in Wales, Arlene Foster in Northern Ireland, and members of the opposition family. There's definitely a sense of sadness, I would say, around where we are now. You know, it's not just packed full of people who live in England. There are multinational people from all walks of life passing their celebrations. If you are here in the UK and you switch through the channels, you'll see it's just wall to wall about Prince Philip, somebody who himself was born into a royal family, so completely understood the role that he had to play by being the Queen's consort. But certainly here in the UK, this is a significant day, a significant moment in history. And even though I'm not of a certain age, people say that this is an end of a bygone era.
Right. Well, thank you, Juliana, for joining us today. While primarily known for his marriage to the Queen, Prince Philip was an extraordinary figure in his own right. He was born into the turmoil of interwar Europe and became a naval officer who was decorated for heroism in World War II. Let's take a look at his life and times.
Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, as he was officially known, had been by his wife's side, Queen Elizabeth, throughout her 69-year reign, the longest in British history. During that time, he earned a reputation for a tough, no-nonsense attitude and a propensity for occasional gaffes. A Greece prince, he was born on June 21, 1921, although his family were exiled from the country while he was an infant. A member of the Greek and Danish royal families, he joined the British Royal Navy in 1939, aged 18, after being educated in France, Germany, and the UK. After marrying Elizabeth in 1947, he went on to play a key role in modernizing the monarchy in the post-World War II period. He pushed for the Queen's coronation in 1953 to be televised live, and behind the scenes removed outdated behavior in the palace he regarded as stuffy. He was the first royal to do a TV interview. While often criticized for his demeanor and for remarks that caused offense, those close to the family say he brought wit, impatient intelligence, and unflagging energy to the monarchy. The former naval officer admitted he found it hard to give up the military career he loved and to take on the job as the monarch's consort, for which there was no clear-cut constitutional role.
How are you, sir?
In private, the prince was regarded as the unquestioned head of his family, but protocol obliged the man dubbed the second handshake to spend his public life literally one step behind his wife. After completing more than 22,000 solo appearances, Philip retired from public life in August 2017, although after that he occasionally appeared at official engagements. His last appearance was last July at a military ceremony at Windsor Castle. Prince Philip spent 4 weeks in hospital earlier this year for treatments for an infection to have a heart procedure, but returned to Windsor in early March. The Queen, who is 94 years old, came to the throne in 1952, and the couple, who were third cousins, married at Westminster Abbey on November 20th, 1947. They had 4 children: Prince Charles, the heir to the throne, Princess Anne, and Princes Andrew and Edward.
Well, he indeed lived a life of service, and I'm sure that the nation and the Commonwealth will miss him. Still to come on the program. We're still following the trial of Derek Chauvin, the man who murdered George Floyd. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Northern Ireland's city of Belfast has been a hotspot since Wednesday, April 7th, as hundreds of youth set fire to gates segregating the city's pro-British and Irish nationalist communities, set a hijacked bus on fire, and attacked the police with stones. Similar scenes occurred on Thursday, with police deploying water cannon in Northern Ireland for the first time in 6 years. 55 police officers have been arrested, and young boys aged 13 and 14 arrested on rioting charges. After the United Kingdom left the European Union's orbit at the start of this year, checks and tariffs were introduced on some goods moving from mainland Britain to Northern Ireland, as the province was now bordering the bloc via EU member Ireland. Prime Minister Boris Johnson had promised there would be no hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland as a result of Brexit, and unfettered trade between the province and the rest of the United Kingdom. But critics of the departures deal's Northern Ireland Protocol say a border is now in effect in the Irish Sea, leaving unionists feeling betrayed by London. And back to our lead story, world leaders have been sending their condolences to the royal family after Buckingham Palace announced the death of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, at the age of 99. Monarchs, heads of state, and PMs past and present from Sweden to India and New Zealand have been paying tributes.
Somewhat biased, but I think
leaders from across the world pay tribute to Prince Philip, a pivotal figure in the British royal family for almost 7 decades. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison set the tone within minutes of the announcement, declaring that the Duke embodied a generation that we will never see again. His words were echoed by others across the Commonwealth. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed condolences, saying, "My thoughts are with the British people and the royal family." In Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau praised the Duke as a man of great purpose and conviction who was motivated by a sense of duty to others. Flags will be flown at half-staff in the country until the Duke's funeral. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, says she's saddened to hear of the passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip on this very sad day. Here in Africa, Zimbabwe's President, Emmerson Mnangagwa, sent his condolences in a tweet, saying, "My deepest condolences to the people of the United Kingdom." Tanzania's President, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has also sent her country's most profound condolences to the Queen, the royal family, and the people of the UK, adding in a tweet, "We stand with you during this difficult time of loss and mourning." Former US President George W. Bush praised the Duke's dignity, saying Prince Philip had had a long and remarkable life and had devoted himself to worthy causes and to others. In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted that Prince Philip was the consummate public servant and will be much missed in Israel and across the world. The Duke of Edinburgh had won special affection in the country after breaking with royal protocol to visit Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories where his mother, Princess Alice of Battenberg, is buried in East Jerusalem on the Mount of Olives. The Greek President, Katrina Sekelaropoulou, has shared this charming photo along with the caption, "Born in Corfu, Prince Philip served his country with devotion for many decades."
Forensic pathologist Dr. Lindsay Thomas, appearing in court today, says she would rule out drugs as a factor in George Floyd's death, explaining that his death was not sudden, like you would get with methamphetamine, and ITR was not slow, like you would see with fentanyl. Where the death is slow, it's peaceful, they fall asleep. Asked by the prosecutor whether, based on her review of the video and application of the experience and knowledge, she would rule out drug overdose as a cause of death, Dr. Thomas says yes. Earlier in her testimony, she told the court that it was the subdual restraint and compression of law enforcement on Floyd that was ultimately the cause of his death.
That caused the brain damage and cause the heart to stop.
And finally on the program, Thursday was a solemn one for Israelis as they honored the 6 million Jews killed in the Nazi Holocaust. Though the memorial had been hampered by the pandemic, families have been allowed to gather for many memorials.
It's 10 a.m. local time in Jerusalem, and sirens sound nationwide as traffic, pedestrians and cafe goers halt to honor the dead from the Holocaust. During the Holocaust Remembrance Day last year, Israel was locked down and families confined to their homes by COVID-19 restrictions, and most ceremonies held online. This year, family gatherings are permitted again in Israel, where infection rates have dropped dramatically and assisted living facilities have been welcoming visitors, easing the loneliness of many of the country's survivors, now numbering some 180,000. The scene will be repeated next week when Israel holds its annual Remembrance Day for its dead in the Middle East conflict. The memorial for the Holocaust began on Wednesday evening with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attending a ceremony at Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem. Last year, Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial was closed to the public due to coronavirus restrictions. Israel's Holocaust Survivors' Rights Authority said in a report published earlier this year that 900 Holocaust survivors died of COVID-19 in Israel last year, adding that 53 survivors have been infected. The report also states that nearly 140,000 Holocaust survivors live in Israel today.
Well, that is all we have for the program today. I'm Akaite Afia. Have a great weekend and stay safe.